If you have ever spent money you didn't really have, just so nobody would find out how little you had, then you already know the woman in this story. You know her in your bones. Stay with me, because what she figured out at 56 changed everything. And it started with an old grey coat. The coat was wool, plain, buttoned all the way up to the neck. No shape to it, no style. The kind of coat you'd pass on a bench and never look at twice. She had bought it herself at a resale shop off Cullen Boulevard for $9, and she wore it near about every day from October to March, over her kitchen whites, walking the 6 blocks from the bus to the nursing home in the dark. People felt sorry for her in that coat. She knew they did. And after a while she let them. Her name was Gloria, 56 years old, a cook at a nursing home in Sunnyside on the south side of Houston. She'd been widowed 6 years. Her husband Earl gone from his heart one Tuesday with no warning at all, and since then it had just been her, in the little house they'd rented on the same street for 22 years. She had a grown daughter in Dallas and a grown son right there in Houston, and a daughter-in-law named Brittany, who was sweet enough, but had a way of looking at Gloria's things, her old couch, her old car, her old coat, with a little softness in her face that Gloria had learned to read. Poor Miss Gloria. That look. Her days started before the sun. She was in that kitchen by 5:30, sliding pans of biscuits into the big oven, stirring grits in a pot she could barely get her arms around, because the old folks liked their grits a certain way, and Gloria made them that way. She knew every resident by what they could and couldn't chew, by whose family came and whose never did. She saved the softest pieces of chicken for the ones with bad teeth and cut it small without being asked. Her feet hurt by 9 and screamed by 2. She rode 2 buses home, the 73 and then the transfer, and she did it in that grey coat. And she came into a house that still had Earl's recliner in it, that she couldn't bring herself to move. She'd sit in her own chair across from his empty one and eat her supper off her lap and count what was left in her checking. And there was never anything left, and she'd tell herself next month. And here is the truth that had run underneath Gloria's whole life, the thing this story is really about. For 56 years, she had believed that you are what you show, that a woman who looks like she's struggling, is less, has failed somehow. Her mama had raised her on it. You keep yourself up, her mama used to say, pressing Gloria's one good dress with a hot iron on Saturday night. You never let them see you down. Whatever you do, baby, don't let them pity you. So Gloria spent. Not on foolishness, she'd have told you. On dignity. When the ladies at church got new pocketbooks, Gloria found a way to get one too. When it was somebody's birthday dinner, Gloria reached for the check first, fast, before anybody could think she couldn't. When Brittany came by, Gloria made sure there was store cake, the good kind, not the mix. She spent to be all right in everybody's eyes, and being all right in everybody's eyes cost her every single dollar she ever made, and left her lying awake at night, truly not all right at all. I want to stop right here and talk to whoever needs it. If you are a woman who has been performing okay for so long, you forgot what actual okay would even feel like, this channel was built for you, and you are seen here. Now let me tell you about the day it started to crack, because it cracked at a graveside of all places. It was Earl's cousin's funeral out at a church in 3rd Ward. After the service, everybody went back to the family's house, and Gloria wore her good dress and brought a sweet potato pie she'd stayed up making. And she stood in that kitchen full of people and did what she always did. She smiled. She said she was doing just fine. And her sister-in-law, Earl's sister, a hard woman named Vanell, looked her up and down and said, loud enough, "Well, I don't know how you make it, Gloria. On what you make, bless your heart." And the whole kitchen went a little quiet. And Gloria, standing there in her good dress that she was still paying off on a store card, felt her face get hot. She said something light. She laughed it off. But on the bus home that night, she sat by the window and watched the city go by, and she did some math she'd been avoiding for years. The dress, the pocketbook from Easter, the birthday check she'd grabbed, the store cake. She added it up in her head, the money she'd spent that year alone, just so nobody would say, "Bless your heart." And the number was so big it made her sick. She'd spent almost $2,000 looking like she wasn't broke, $2,000 she could have had. She had bought the appearance of being all right, and it had made her more broke than she ever would have been if she'd just let them wonder. She got off at her stop, and the streetlights were doing that orange flicker over Cullen, and she stood there a minute in her good dress, feeling like a fool, and she didn't have a word yet for what she felt. So she just went inside and hung the dress up careful and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark. She thought that was as low as it got, feeling foolish at 56. She didn't know the thing that would truly turn her was waiting for her at work, in the mouth of an old woman who owned less than anybody Gloria had ever met. There was a resident at the nursing home named Miss Odessa, 88 years old, sharp as a tack, a tiny woman who'd worked as a maid her whole life and had exactly nothing to show for it, or so it looked. Gloria loved cooking for Miss Odessa because Miss Odessa noticed. She'd say, "You put the smoked neck bone in these greens today, didn't you?" And she'd be right. Gloria took to sitting with her a few minutes when the kitchen was slow. One afternoon, Gloria was going on, half to herself, wiping down Miss Odessa's little tray table that was already clean, about how she never could get ahead, how everybody seemed to have more than her, how tired she was of it. And Miss Odessa watched her with those bright old eyes, and she said the thing. She said it easy, like she was talking about the weather. She said, "Child, you don't have to show 'em you're all right. You just got to be all right. Ain't the same thing. One of 'em costs everything you got." That was all. Gloria kind of nodded and kept wiping. Miss Odessa turned her head and looked out the window at the parking lot and didn't say another word about it. But Gloria carried that little tray rag back to the kitchen and stood at the sink and ran the water and didn't wash a thing. Just let it run over her hands, warm, then hot, until it near about burned, and she pulled them back. You just got to be all right. She couldn't have told you why her chest hurt. She sat with Miss Odessa a while longer that afternoon, neither of them saying much. Miss Odessa had one thin sweater she wore over everything, elbows worn near through, and her family, when they came, which wasn't often, always fussed at her to let them buy her nice things, and she always waved them off. Gloria had thought that was just old age, not caring anymore. Now she wasn't sure. Now she wondered if Miss Odessa had figured out something a long time ago that Gloria was only now bumping into. The old woman had lived through things Gloria couldn't imagine, and she sat there content in a worn sweater, wanting nothing, owing nothing, and there was a kind of richness on her that no pocketbook had ever put on Gloria. She rode home that evening, and her hands still felt strange. She kept opening and closing them. She got in the door, and the first thing she did, out of pure habit, was start planning what she'd bring to the church anniversary that Sunday, something nice, something that would show, and she was halfway through deciding on a catered tray she couldn't afford before she even took her shoes off. She stopped in the middle of her own kitchen with one shoe in her hand. She stood there. The kitchen clock ticked. She set the shoe down slow, and she didn't finish the thought, and she didn't understand why she couldn't. She found herself, a few days later, standing in front of her closet, and she reached past the good dress, and she took down that old gray $9 coat. It wasn't even cold out, she just held it. She put it on and looked in the mirror over the dresser, and there was a woman nobody would look at twice, a woman folks would feel sorry for. And she waited to feel the shame her mama had promised her. Here is what happens with a habit. You don't decide to quit it. Your hands just start reaching for a different thing, and your mind comes along behind, arguing the whole way. That Sunday, Gloria wore the plain coat to church over a dress she already owned. She did not bring a catered tray. She brought a pot of greens, the good ones, the smoked neckbone ones, that cost her almost nothing and that everybody scraped clean. And when Vernell said, in that voice, "Gloria, you didn't have to bring these old greens, honey, we could have ordered," Gloria smiled and said, "These old greens are exactly what I wanted to bring," and she did not explain herself, and she felt her heart going fast like she'd done something dangerous. It did not feel good. I need you to hear that, because the pretty stories skip it. It felt like giving up. It felt like letting them win, letting them think the thing her mama had spent a lifetime teaching her never to let them think. She went home and sat in the plain coat at her kitchen table, and half of her wanted to drive to the store right then and buy something, anything, to feel like herself again. But she didn't. And that week, the money she would have spent on the catered tray, she did something with it she had never done in her life. She took it to the credit union on Griggs Road, and she opened a little savings account, the kind they called a Christmas club. And she put the money in, and she did not tell one living soul, not her daughter, not her son, especially not Brittany. She let them all keep thinking exactly what they thought. It did not take the first time. That is the part I won't lie to you about. 2 weeks later, her granddaughter had a birthday, and old Gloria came right back up in her, the Gloria who had to show. She stood in the aisle at the store with a big pink dollhouse in the cart. $90, more than she'd put in that little account all month, and she almost bought it because a good grandmama gives nice things, because she couldn't stand the thought of Brittany's face if she showed up with something small. She got all the way to the register, and then she thought about Miss Odessa looking out that window, and she thought about that number on the bus, the $2,000 she'd spent on other people's opinions, and her hands, standing right there in line, put the dollhouse back on the shelf behind her. She bought a smaller thing, a good thing, but a smaller thing. And she cried a little in the parking lot, not because she was sad, she couldn't have told you why. And then she drove home, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years, which was that she had chosen her own self over a stranger's opinion, and lived. The next time was easier, and the time after that easier still. That is how it goes. Not all at once. Just your hands over and over reaching for the different thing until one day it's just what you do, and the strangest thing started to happen. When she stopped spending to look all right, there was money. Not a lot at first, but there was money where there had never been money, because the money had never really been going to bills, she saw now. It had been going to Vernell's opinion. It had been going to that look on Brittany's face. It had been going to a war she was fighting every single day against being pitied. And the day she laid her weapons down, the war just stopped, and it turned out she'd been the only one still fighting it. She wore the plain coat all winter. She let Brittany feel sorry for her. She let the church ladies wonder, and every 2 weeks, quiet, she fed that Christmas club account like it was a child. There was a Sunday. Brittany actually said it right there in Gloria's kitchen, said Miss Gloria. "You know, if you ever need help with your bills, me and Michael," and she let it trail off with that soft, pitying look. And the old Gloria would have died, would have spent the next month proving she was fine. But this, Gloria just smiled and said, "Thank you, baby, I'm doing all right." And she poured the girl some tea and changed the subject. And inside, she was laughing, because she had almost $7,000 that this child would never dream of. And the pity didn't touch her anymore. It slid right off. That was new. That was worth more than the money. She named the thing finally, sitting on her bed one night, with the passbook in her hands, and Earl's picture on the dresser catching the lamplight. She wasn't ashamed. What she'd been calling shame her whole life had just been fear. Fear of being seen as less. And once she quit being afraid of that, once she let them think she had nothing, she was free in a way she had not been since before Earl died, maybe since before she was grown. Here is what she'd stopped believing, and somebody watching needs to steal it tonight. You are not what you show. A woman can look like she has nothing in her hands and be holding more than everybody at the table. 2 years and some change went by like that. The plain coat got a little more worn. And one evening, Gloria sat down with that passbook and added it up. All of it. 2 years of the money that used to walk out the door dressed up as dignity. $6,000. $6,000 in a woman's name that the whole world had decided was barely getting by. She sat with it a long time at the kitchen table in the plain coat, with Earl's empty recliner across the room. She thought about Earl, how he'd have laughed, how he'd have said, "That's my glow," always did have more sense than the whole bunch of them. She thought about her mama, pressing that one good dress on Saturday nights, terrified of pity, and she felt sorry for her mama for the first time, a woman who'd spent her life so scared of looking poor that she never got to stop being it. Then she did one small thing that showed her how far she'd come. Her water heater had been going out for a month. 2 years ago, she'd have put it on a card and hidden the bill and prayed. This time she called the man, and she paid him from her own reserve, in cash, and she did not borrow a dime, and she did not tell anybody she'd been struggling, and she did not tell anybody she'd been saving either. She just handled it. Quiet, a woman with something behind her for the first time in her life. There was a young woman who cooked the breakfast shift came on as Gloria was leaving. Keisha, maybe 30, always looking a little frayed. And Gloria noticed she was carrying a brand new pocketbook that Gloria knew good and well cost more than Keisha made in a week. And she noticed the tired way Keisha said she was doing great, just great, when anybody could see she wasn't. Gloria saw herself in that girl so clear, it stopped her in the doorway. The exact same performance, the exact same money walking out the door dressed as being all right. The exact same too bright smile Gloria used to wear to funerals and church anniversaries and her own kitchen table. The smile that said, "Don't you dare feel sorry for me," while it quietly bankrupted her. Looking at Keisha was like looking at a photograph of herself from 3 years back, before the plain coat, before Miss Odessa, before she learned the difference. She almost said nothing. It wasn't her place. But she thought about Miss Odessa, who'd passed that winter, God rest her, in her worn sweater, wanting nothing, and how the old woman never once preached at her, just said her little piece and looked out the window and let it grow in Gloria on its own time. Gloria pulled that plain grey coat closed at the neck, the same coat she still wore it, she'd never give it up now. And she said to Keisha, "Easy," on her way out the door, "You know, baby, you don't have to show anybody you're all right. You just got to be all right. Ain't the same thing. And one of them will take every dollar you make." Keisha kinda laughed. Then she didn't. She looked down at that expensive new pocketbook on her arm, like she was seeing it for the first time. And Gloria walked out into the Houston dark in her $9 coat, warm, with $6,000 behind her name and not a soul who knew it. And she left that girl standing there thinking, the way a seed thinks in the dark. Before anybody can see it's growing. Before you go, do something for me. Comment down below with these 2 words, "Let them wonder," and tell me one thing you've been buying just to look all right that you're ready to lay down. I read everyone, and I promise you, you are not the only woman who's been fighting that war alone. And send this to a friend who's tired of performing. She needs to hear it as much as you did. If you're new here, this is a place for women who've spent their whole lives keeping up appearances and are ready to just keep their money instead. Subscribe, tap that bell, and let the next story find you. And if you want to start today, there's a free app that will help you quietly put a little order to it all. Just for you, nobody watching. The link's in the comments. Now go on. You don't owe anybody the show. Be all right, baby. That's the only one that was ever yours to keep.